Look, I thank you all for coming today. I'm pleased to be joined by the Minister for Employment, Minister Michaelia, and the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Darren Chester. We're here today to announce the report by the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman's inquiry into the effect of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal's payments order on Australian small businesses has been completed. I'll start by introducing the inquiry. Minister Cash will then speak about the impacts the payments order had on people's lives, and they are devastating impacts. Their effects on families, which are ongoing, both personally and financially. Minister Chester will then comment on the safety implications of the payments order. We will then be happy to take questions on the RSRT after we've all spoken. The Contractor Driver Minimum Payments Order, Road Safety Remuneration Order 2016 was issued by the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal on the 18th of December last year. Following significant industry concern, the former Minister for Small Business, Kelly O'Dwyer, requested the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, Kate Carnell, to conduct an inquiry into the effect on Australian small businesses of the payments order. These small businesses were family-owned and operated truck drivers. The payments order took effect on the 7th of April 2016 for a brief time before the RSRT was appropriately abolished, ceasing operations on the 21st of April. The payments order set minimum rates of pay on a per kilometre and per hour basis for contractor drivers undertaking routes either in supermarket distribution or long-distance operations. As the Minister for Small Business, the Small Business Ombudsman has provided me with her 59-page completed inquiry, which I tabled in the House of Representatives last night. I do thank her, Kate Carnell, for conducting the Australia-wide inquiry and the significant work that she's undertaken. It's most important. The government response to this inquiry will be announced when we have analysed and we have considered all of the Ombudsman's findings. I do, however, want to draw your attention to the inquiry today, as elements of it are alarming, they're damaging and they're ongoing. I'll hand over to Minister Cash.
Thank you, Minister McCormack. And I too welcome the report into the impact of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal's payment order by the Small Business Ombudsman, Kate Carnell. There is no doubt that this report and its findings are absolutely devastating. The report also confirms that the government made the right decision in moving swiftly to abolish earlier this year the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal and to put an end to this devastating payments order. It is a well-known fact, and it is now confirmed by this report, that the payments order caused crippling financial hardship and emotional distress to the thousands of owner drivers. The payments order was bad for small business, it was bad for truck drivers, it was bad for their families, and it was bad for the Australian economy. When you read the report, and the report will be available later on today, what strikes you more than anything is the human impact that the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal's payment order had on these truck drivers. Quote after quote in the report tells of the negative consequences resulting from the order on people's lives, including their mental health, their relationships and their finances. Many people lost their livelihoods as a result of this payments order. Perhaps, though, the most perverse element of this sorry saga, as we know, was that the damage inflicted by Labor's RSRT was done under the guise of safety. The report outlines that this was wrong. Let us be clear in terms of the history of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal. The RSRT was established in 2012 by Bill Shorten at the request and the behest of the Transport Workers Union. Nothing more and nothing less. The payments order that was handed down at the end of last year was designed to push owner drivers out of business and encourage them to take up work into the employ of the large transport companies, because then, of course, it makes it a lot easier to unionise that workforce. The government, of course, was not going to stand by and watch the livelihoods of these great Australians who carry our economy, be devastated and destroyed because of a political decision made by Bill Shorten in kowtowing to yet another union. As Minister McCormack has outlined, in April of this year, with the support of the crossbench, the former crossbench, we managed to abolish the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal and the Payments Order and save the livelihoods of these small businesses. Senator Xenophon himself was one of the crossbenchers who had initially voted for the establishment of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal. But when he listened to the impact that the Payments Order was having on these businesses, he realised, he listened and he understood, and he knew that we needed to abolish the tribunal. So Senator Xenophon did the right thing and he supported the government in its efforts. He apologised. Now, today, with the handing down and the release of the Small Businesses Report, it's also time for Bill Shorten to stand up and do the right thing. Bill Shorten made it very clear prior to the July election that if Labor had been elected, they would have returned immediately the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal and the devastating Payments Order. Well, I say to Bill Shorten, read the report. If you don't believe this evidence, then quite frankly, you won't believe anything. Do the right thing now. Do what Nick Xenophon is. Stand up and support the owner-drivers, admit you are wrong, and give a clear undertaking to the tens of thousands of owner-drivers across Australia, the small businesses they support and their families, that never again will you kowtow to the TWU, and that you commit to them that never again will the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal ever rear its ugly head again. In terms of the report, it's impossible to read this report and not feel great empathy for the men and women whose lives have been turned upside down by this unnecessary ordeal. I reconfirm on behalf of the Turnbull government that we will support owner-drivers every step of the way. We abolished the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, and under this government, it will never ever again see the light of day. Minister Chester will now make some comments.
Well, thank you, Minister Cash, and to Minister McCormack, and I think it demonstrates again the Liberals and the National parties are the parties of small business, and this report has vindicated the stance we took. And there are fundamental differences between the stance of the Coalition and the stance of the Labor Party in relation to this issue. We believe and we understand that you can actually save lives on our roads without sacking owner-drivers. Now, there is nothing to suggest that owner-drivers are poorer drivers, but the RSRT discriminated against owner-drivers and targeted them all in the guise of safety. The RSRT had nothing to do with safety whatsoever. We are addressing road safety concerns in the heavy vehicle sector through a safe system approach. It's safer drivers on safer roads in safer vehicles, and we'll continue to pursue that agenda as a national government. We have a $50 billion infrastructure investment program which is changing lives around our nation and saving lives, and we'll continue to invest and deliver on our commitments to the Australian people in that regard. I want to point out that in terms of the heavy vehicle sector, the practical work we're doing is in terms of road widening and strengthening, it's freeway duplications, there's new rest areas, and making sure that the heavy vehicle sector is well considered in our road safety plans. The final point I'd like to make is that the money saved from the abolishment of the RSRT, the $4 million a year, has been given to the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator to invest in road safety improvements for the heavy vehicle sector. So that $4 million has been used towards point-to-point camera technology, working with the heavy vehicle sector on ways to improve the interaction of light vehicle drivers around heavy vehicles. And it's a final point I wanted to make, is that while there are heavy vehicle crashes occurring at a rate which is too high for our liking, in the vast majority of cases where heavy vehicles are involved in a crash, it's actually the light vehicle driver who's seen to be at fault. And that's a challenge for us all to take that responsibility as we use our road network, how we interact around our heavy vehicle sector, and making sure we take responsibility for our own actions on the road.
Minister Cash, what's the evidence that road safety order was the cause of hardship rather than underlying conditions in the industry, including low pay before the order was in effect?
Well, the report itself clearly highlights that safety was used as an excuse to bring in this order. The report itself highlights that the impact of the payments order was discriminatory. It only applied to one sector of the market, and that was owner-drivers. It forced them to accept a payment term that they did not want to accept, and it ensured that they became uncompetitive.
But that doesn't answer the question. The order was only in effect for 2 weeks. Doesn't that suggest that owner-drivers were already heavily indebted and desperate because of low pay and conditions in the industry before
No, not at all. These people are small business men and women. They choose to be owner-drivers and run their own businesses. In terms of the evidence that we had, once the impact of the order became clear, and that was before April of this year, the owner-drivers made it very clear to us. They were already being told by the contractors they would not have jobs if and when they had to charge those rates. So in terms of the evidence that we had, it was from the owner-drivers themselves telling us the work was drying up and there would literally be nothing left for them on the day that the payments order came into being. And this report now confirms in black and white that is exactly what occurred. Lives were devastated.
Doesn't that constitute anecdotal evidence, people saying that they wouldn't have had enough work to stay afloat, that sort of thing?
When you're hearing from a small business person that they are no longer going to be offered work, and they have been told that by the person who would normally offer them work, that's not anecdotal evidence. Unlike Labor, we believed what we were being told by the owner-drivers. We acted. The crossbench also listened very carefully to the owner-drivers and worked with us. What we have now in releasing this report today is absolute confirmation that the actions that the Turnbull government took at the time were the right actions, and we have literally saved tens of thousands of jobs as a result of abolishing the payments order.
Minister Cash, how many suicides would you attribute to this owner-driver truck saga?
You are right. The report, unfortunately, does make mention that there were suicides as a result of the impact of the payments order. This is obviously devastating for all of us. In terms of the numbers, I cannot comment on the numbers, but I will let the report speak for itself.
Minister Chester and Minister Cash, you said there's no link between pay and safety for owner-drivers, but the 2 reports the government commissioned before the election, including the Jaguar report, said that there was a statistically significant link between pay and safety. Why do you accept the anecdotal evidence in this report rather than that evidence that there is a statistically significant link?
Well, in the first instance, I disagree with the premise of your question. The reports did not find a conclusive link at all. It was merely commentary in the reports. And as Minister Chester has clearly outlined, and as is now found in the Small Business Ombudsman's report, in terms of road safety, to bring in a tribunal under the guise of road safety and saying that by paying owner-drivers more, you are suddenly going to make our roads safer, when the owner-drivers will be the first people to put their hands up and tell you safety is paramount. It is a paramount consideration for them. The truck is their life. It is their business. They want to go home to their families at night. And they actually took it as an absolute insult that the Labor Party and Bill Shorten would say to them, we need to pay you more, and in paying you more, you are suddenly going to become safer. The report clearly highlights that this is a fundamentally flawed premise. And I'll let Minister Chester make some comments in terms of where the actual issues of safety are better addressed.
Well, thanks, Minister Cash. I mean, the issue of road safety is of paramount importance to the Commonwealth as it is to other state jurisdictions. And now over the past 12 months in particular, tragically we've seen an increase in road fatalities and serious injuries in our nation. To the end of June this year, 1,292 people have died on Australian roads. And after decades of improvements in reducing road trauma in Australia, we've actually seen an increase of about 10% in the past 12 months. And that's why I've called a meeting of all state ministers for later on this year with an absolute focus on road safety and trying to bring bring together the best and brightest minds in Australia on this very issue. We are not achieving at the level we have achieved in the past in terms of reducing serious injuries on our roads or reducing fatalities on our roads. In the trucking sector, the heavy vehicle sector, there has been some improvement though over the past couple of years. And while every serious injury, every fatality is a cause of great angst and concern for governments and for communities and for the families impacted, we do need to work harder in terms of having this national conversation, having a renewed national focus on road safety. And as I said in my opening comments, it's not about a single solution. It's about having a whole safe system approach, and that involves having safer drivers. It involves having safer vehicles and having safer roads. And we've got to approach all three of those equally if we're actually going to see real reductions in road trauma. Now, in terms of the heavy vehicle sector more specifically, our focus is on practical measures. Having more and better rest areas so drivers can take a rest when they need it and actually get a decent rest at the time they take those breaks. It's making sure that we have a safer road environment for them to do their work in. And it's also making sure that light vehicle operators, so mums and dads driving their cars, understand when they're interacting with heavy vehicles what the limitations of those heavy vehicles are. There are parts of a heavy vehicle where you can't see a light vehicle. We need people to understand that. And so when they're interacting with heavy vehicles, pulling around in front of them and stopping very quickly is a very dangerous manoeuvre. So there's some education required, and that's why I've been talking with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator about having a national campaign in relation to that as well, about how we improve our interaction of light vehicle operators with our heavy vehicle sector.
Given the hardship that is, you say has been caused by a government decision, is an assistance package or compensation at all part of the consideration to help out these owner drivers?
Well, look, the government is considering the report and its finding. There are 14 recommendations. The government is considering that, but there isn't a compensation package. The fact is we have abolished the RSRT. The fact is the Liberal Nationals government has said that the RSRT will not be coming back under any circumstance, under any government that we are in. And I just want to pick up a point about the anecdotal evidence. I have never seen, as a member for 6 years in this place, the sorts of heartbreaking, heartrending letters that I received via email, via post, via telephone call. Often you get form letters, conspired by GetUp, conspired by the unions. These were heartfelt letters from people such as Wayne Lewis of Coolaman, such as Clayton and Naomi Thomas, who've got a 17-month-old from West Wyalong, such as Alan Shearer from Wagga Wagga, and I know Darren and I know Michaelia had letters as well from their constituents, from their people. These people were forced off the road. These people couldn't do backloads. Their work dried up. These people are safety conscious. Safety is their number one thing, and they were forced off the road and forced out of business. They don't want that. We don't want that. Australia doesn't need that. I mean, our truckies are the lifeblood of this nation. They keep this nation moving. They keep the supermarket shelves stocked. They are. I cannot emphasise how much that safety means to them. And to be put out of work, 62,000 of them was beyond comprehension. And as Minister Cash has said, Bill Shorten needs to come out today. He needs to acknowledge this report, and he needs to apologise. And he also needs to give an undertaking that this will not in any way, shape or form occur under any future government.
Back on the issue of suicides, just quickly, would you go as far as to say that the Tribunal, Labor and the unions have blood on their hands?
I will let the report speak for itself, and once you've read the report, you'll be able to come to your own conclusions as to that. But again, in terms of the broader principle and the impact that this order had, it was a devastating impact. It is clearly outlined in the report, and that is why we moved so quickly to abolish the RSRT in April of this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.